the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Why don't we start off with a man that has become traditional on this program. We used to have some guys that filled the bill, but lately it's all about one person. It's all about Lance in Tennessee. What's up, Lance?
What's up? Hey, this show's all about you, Paul. You're the man. But, hey, I want to say this, man. SEC is the king in football, but the ACC is king in basketball. It don't matter what happens in the tournament. I get tired of that, man. You say you respect Coach K, but you don't, man. You dismiss them so easy. As soon as I got a phone, you start saying they're going to beat Duke. I mean, it seems like you're banking more on Duke.
Hey, Lance, I know you have a television, and I assume you watch Duke barely survive Virginia Tech last night. Are you kidding me?
There you go again.
I'm not talking about the Virginia Tech powerhouse in football. I'm talking about the Virginia Tech powerhouse in basketball. I mean, Duke overtime, and you're flapping your gums on here about how great Duke is.
Paul, you keep undermining the SEC basketball. It's a quality league. Won't you ask Len Elmore about SEC basketball?
I will.
You're an SEC man. You can't accept that there's a bigger rival or there's a bigger league in another league.
Of course I can accept it. I mean, are you crazy?
SEC basketball. If Coach K was in the SEC,
I mean, Lance,
you would
let me ask you
he would be in your background, not a five-head of Paul Finebaum.
Lance.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, have you heard? I mean, you obviously listen and watch this show. I've been fairly critical of the SEC. I mean, you do remember me saying to you, okay.
You have, but you won't talk to me about Duke and Kentucky matchup. You always want to talk about Carolina, or you start bashing other teams. I mean, I know we got a long way to they play, but let's just say they play. I mean, you break down the game. It's a bad matchup for Kentucky.
Okay.
They're a full-court press team. You cannot press Duke. They got true guards, something the SEC does not have. It's a pitiful basketball league. I don't care what year it is, unless you want to go to the early 90s. And that boy yesterday said, I'm young. I might be young, but I seen the golden age of basketball. Come on, man.
Lance, we have about a month to go, and this isn't one of those debates that will rage on in the summertime. We'll settle this. No big deal.
Okay.
I feel pretty confident.
Let me get one more opinion from you, Paul, because I respect you so much. Coach Wood, I understand what he did, but he didn't have a true rival back then in the Pac-12. Who could compete with UCLA? And he didn't coach year in, year out against a Dean Smith.
Well, at various times, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's at some point, Southern Cal was a rival. At other times, Oregon, I think it was Oregon State was maybe more of the rival during Wooden's time. No, I mean, John Wooden had a pretty easy time. But one thing about Wooden, he did play a national schedule. He played Notre Dame and lost to Notre Dame once or twice, breaking his long winning streak. I know you're aware of that. So, I mean, he played around in the country. I mean, he played opponents. It wasn't like today, though, I mean, where you fill up November and December with top 10 teams. I don't think that happened back then.
I respect that, and I respect Coach Wood, and I'm not trying to diss him, but I just think that Coach K was in the SEC. You wouldn't let anybody call your radio and say anybody's better, man. He turned USA basketball around. They didn't even get a gold in 2004, I don't think. They were pitiful, man. He's way underrated, man.
Lance, let me ask you one question. Hold on. Let me ask you a question, though, since you're – because I'm not an ACC expert. When was the last time – an ACC team won the national championship in basketball?
They won the national championship?
Yeah, like what won the NCAA championship?
Duke won it in 2010.
Okay.
And then they won it in 2000. But the Maryland teams, and that's nothing.
Is 2010 your answer?
Pretty sure 2010 was the last time Duke won. Is that right?
Okay.
Did somebody sneak in there after that?
Yeah. When's the last time an SEC team won the national championship in basketball?
Kentucky won it in 2012.
Oh, okay.
But they, you know another thing that says another thing about Kentucky? The Florida Gators have won back-to-back national championships. Kentucky's never did it, and they went out like some bad basketball team. That's pathetic that a football school did it and a basketball team ain't done it. And get you some of that. What about that 92 game? Won't Kentucky fans talk about that? Christian Waiting. Come on. And I'm going to say, Coach K went up against some greats. Nolan Richardson. And I heard that guy who filled in for you, Jason Rice, Kalahi. He said the only reason Duke won it in 92 because UNLV was disinterested. That's so damn disrespectful. You're talking about a team with Bobby Hurley, Christian Leitner, and Grant Hill, and Coach K, and you want to act like they were disinterested? Well, that's a shame on them. In '94, I thought that was an upset when Arkansas beat them. But Corliss Williamson, he took Cherokee Parks to the house. He's a man. I love Corliss Williamson. I'll give him credit.
I imagine on Saturday you'll be pulling for the Razorbacks, huh?
No, because I want Kentucky undefeated. So they play Duke in the championship, and we're going to beat them down, son. That's my dream.
Beat them down.
If Duke don't choke, which they have in the past few years, but they got a point guard this year, and I think that'll help them.
Okay.
You got to have a guard in there.
Yeah. I mean, this is not where I'm going to remind you that Duke lost in the first round last year to some high school, right?
And I'm going to remind you they didn't have a damn point guard either. And, hey, I got the T-shirt. My nephew goes to that school, Mercer in Georgia. He sent me the damn T-shirt up here. Okay. Oh, man. It's brutal, man. It's brutal. I couldn't believe it. He goes to school there. Ain't that good? But, hey, man, I appreciate your time, Paul, man. I love your show, man.
Yeah, I didn't mean to insinuate Mercer was a high school. I correct myself. Andre is up next in Baton Rouge. What do you say, Andre?
Coach Paul Finebaum. John, how is it going?
Very well.
Listen, should I refer to you or John as the stud muffin?
That is John.
Man, the charisma, y'all
my
are
stud
the
muffin
ladies,
days. I'm like a triple crown winner. I mean, I've been retired.
Well, you know what? I think they're going to put you out to stud, put you out to the pasture, Paul, and get stud fees on you, man.
What a way to hey, Andre, what a way to make a living. I mean, you win a couple of races and.
Yeah, I know, Paul. I know. Man, listen, I enjoy you all's show. I just a lot of times I don't call in, but I enjoy listening. It's kind of cool now here today, Paul. It's probably in the high 40s, low 50s, but by the weekend it'll be back up to the 70s. So
yeah, we haven't seen 70s in too many places out above Baton Rouge in a while.
Well, you know what? I always tell my wife, anywhere you can go where you have lemon trees and lime trees and orange trees growing as we have here, then it's not a bad place to live, Paul. You know, we're going to be coming into spring practice pretty soon, and it's going to be time to put on the brass knucks and get in the center of the ring. You know, I tip my hat to Ohio State. They won the thing fair square. You know, they came in there and punched Oregon out, and Oregon blinked. Man, what a weak team. You know what? Ohio State punched them in the mouth in the middle of the ring, and they stood there and took it. Auburn did them the same way. LSU came back the next year in Dallas, punched them in the mouth, and they just stood there and blinked. They need to punch back, Paul, but, hey, this is big boy ball, and there's no hiding here. And, hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call. And you haven't heard from Anna lately up there.
No. Anna went to Cleveland and never came home.
All right, thanks, Paul. Y'all have a good day, man.
Thank you very much. And by the way, to Lance, I don't want to be tit for tat here, but I mean Kentucky's been to, I think, 3 Final Fours since Duke last won. And by the way, Kentucky did win back-to-back NCAA titles in the late 40s. I think they won 3 out of 4 under the much maligned Adolph Rupp.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Let's check in with Rick, who is in Los Angeles. Rick, thank you, and good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, Paul. Thank you for taking my call. Hello,
thank
John. I hope both of you survived that freeze that went down
the
coast there.
Somehow.
Are things looking better now? I haven't seen any pictures today.
Where we are, they predicted 8 to 12 inches, and we got about 2. So thank goodness for bad forecasting.
Yeah, I saw at the end of your show pictures, people were coming in about they're being snowed under. It was bad.
Yeah, no, there were some places. I mean, it really depended on. I mean, in the same city, you could get 2 inches, 4 inches, or 10 inches. That's just the way snow works everywhere, but particularly in the South.
Well, just want you to, you don't get down when it melts down. Don't get no flooding over there. So, good luck to everybody over there. Look, first of all, I owe Lance an apology. I misunderstood what he said yesterday, and I took it out of context. I understand what Lance said when he repeated today. Lance, I apologize. You're right. There was no Dean Smith in the Pac-8 when I was following UCLA back in the 60s. And you are right, Paul. In the early 60s, you know, he had Cal, okay, and then he had Pete Newell. Then when he retired, then it was Coach Boyd. It's always Southern Cal. So it was Coach Boyd. Was
it Ralph Miller at Oregon State or Oregon? I can't remember.
Yes, sir. It was Ralph Miller up in Oregon State.
Okay, he was a big time. He was a great coach.
Oh, absolutely. If anybody goes into the archives and look what before him, Slat Gills, but what he accomplished through his career, he was a terrific coach. And then there was Marv Harshman at Washington.
Oh, absolutely.
These coaches were terrific.
Coaches.
But Coach Wooden, it was an overshadow. So, Lance, I apologize. But Southern Cal was our rivalry, but I do take exception to anybody out there. Coach Wooden did not have it easy, gentlemen, and I will go one more time. If you lost more than two games, you were out. You were not in that tournament. Every game. You know what basketball was exciting? You had basically every game you played, it was exciting because it counted, okay? It's not like, okay, teams are getting in with 7, 8 losses, whatever. Back then, it didn't happen. And that's where I do differ with people like, hey, number one, like I said yesterday, the 32 team, you're facing every conference champion, okay? Number two, if you lost more than a couple games, you were not in the tournament. So, times are different, things are different. I do want to say one thing, though. Coach K, Lance, I've got the greatest respect. He, without a doubt, his resume showed it, and you're right about his teams. He is one of the all-time greats, no doubt about it. But I just wanted to clear the air on the rivalry thing and all that. Oh, one more thing, if you give me one more minute, but Boomer Sooner Larry, who I do like. Yes, Larry, as a diehard Bruin, but I'm an honest Bruin, I was aware of St. Gilbert, but being close to the program and having the privilege to talk to a lot of players, former players, Gail Goodrich, Keith Erickson, the late Walt Hazard, Jack Hirsch, they said that Sam Gilbert, on those first 2 championships, was not around the program. And to me, Coach Wooden's greatest accomplishment was that small team that went 30-0, and 64 and 29-1 with that small team. Nobody bigger than 6'5". Sam entered the program when Kareem came from New York and Paulie was open, and it started there. The one thing I want to defend Coach Wooden on, and everybody's human, hey, did he turn a blind eye? Absolutely. But the thing was, he insisted that it was college student athletes. They had to attend class, and they had to go beyond basketball to take care and prepare for life afterwards. And that's where my respect came from. Not the championships. It's how his guys came afterwards, and they took on life after the game of basketball.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I realize a lot of you don't know who Sam Gilbert was. He was a booster the NCAA leveled and really just laid into badly when they put UCLA on major probation in the 80s. A lot of reports had him connected to underworld figures. He was accused of many nefarious things. I still don't think it had much to do with the success of UCLA 40 or 50 years ago, but I just thought for some of you who were lost in space there trying to figure out that conversation, I wanted to give you an update. Jackie is in Kentucky as we continue. Good afternoon, Jackie.
Hello, Paul.
Hi there.
I love your show.
Thank
Some
you.
of the callers are just, they mess with the mind. And Lance, I want to set him straight. There is no way that Duke will be playing in the championship with Kentucky. They don't have the talent to do it this year, I don't think. And I've watched them play. I've watched them get beat by Miami and North Carolina State, when neither team was even ranked. So
You are correct about that. I mean, listen, no one in their right mind is going to criticize Mike Krzyzewski. He's one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game. But we're talking about a singular situation here at Kentucky, and I don't think Kentucky. I don't think there's a person in the Commonwealth who's sitting around going, man, certainly hope we don't get Duke. I mean, they may not want to see Virginia, may not want to see Gonzaga, may not want to see Wisconsin, but Duke?
You know, Paul, I think this team is a special team. It's a once-in-a-lifetime team. And I don't think there's a basketball team out there that can beat them. Kentucky would have to beat themselves and not come in there playing. But they have come in and been slow to start and everything this season. But I really believe that.
Well, there's no doubt. And you mentioned, Duke didn't just lose to Miami. They lost to Miami badly. That game was in Durham.
And to the cleaners.
Yeah. I mean, Kentucky, we talk about Kentucky's 3 close calls because there's nothing else to say.
No, when they start playing, nobody else can keep up with them. They come in and piddle around and get behind, and then they decide, whoa, I might have to put out a little effort, and they do, and then they get way ahead, So, they're great guys, though. Not just very talented. I think they're really all-around good guys. And I love my Kentucky basketball. And I thank you very much for listening to me. Oh, and I want to say something else, too. I've heard those Arkansas fans ranting about Kentucky and what they're going to do to us. Well, if I had one of them's address, I would send them a sympathy card after Saturday because they will probably need it. There is no way if we come in there playing, they could even get close to us.
Thank you very much. I always hate to talk about ourselves in third person, but only the show could find a war between Kentucky and Arkansas. I'm stunned by some of the comments that are going on back and forth here. Tom is up next in Carbondale, Illinois. Hey, Tom.
Good afternoon, Paul. How are you and John today?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I have a basketball comment, but first I've wanted to thank you and the staff for the modicum of respect that you showed the Razorback football team last season while they were struggling to get it together.
Well, thank you. No, even when it was dire, we were up with Coach Bielema. I think it was the second weekend in October, and you could feel it that weekend. We were in Fayetteville for the Alabama game, and you could feel it happening, and it almost happened the next day. And it took a while, but it did finally happen, and I don't think there's going to be any stopping it now.
Yes, you said it yourself that the fans believed, and we do, and we're not afraid of anybody next season, except maybe Auburn.
Well, Auburn's pretty good.
Regarding the game on Saturday, I have become frustrated with the question that you have been asking people, why are the last 3 Arkansas victories relevant? And I would like to answer that question for you.
Please do.
They're relevant because they prove that Mike Anderson knows how to beat John Calipari.
Okay. Well,
So
and I can't remember the year, but I do remember may have been the year that Memphis ran the table, not ran the table, went to the championship game, or maybe in the next year. But Anderson did beat Cal in an epic game between UAB and Memphis, and that's just going back in time. He has had about as much success or more success with Calipari as anyone other than maybe. Bruce Pearl had a lot of success at Tennessee. Obviously, Billy Donovan has had some, but most haven't.
Well, 3 in a row is quite a feat, I think,
it is.
And that doesn't take into account the level of the players. I'm just talking about coaching ability.
Well, listen, this is easily decided, and thank you for the call from Illinois. We'll see Saturday. Although I don't think Saturday is really anything more than just another step. If Arkansas wins, it's obviously a major deal. But as far as Kentucky is concerned, it's a big game, but so will the game in Athens be on the following Tuesday night, and so will the game in Florida be. That's just the way it goes. I think the game actually is in Kentucky. But thank you for the call.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Talked about somebody who played in that era is our next guest. He is Len Elmore, the really legendary player and who's contributed as much off the court to the game of basketball as he has on the court, now ESPN commentator. And Len, thank you very much for your time. Good afternoon, and thank you. It's a great pleasure to talk to you.
The honor's mine, Paul. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. You obviously played a couple of years ago in the ACC when it was dramatically different. Not to go old school, but I mean, I've been trying to explain to some people the path back then as we watched Kentucky march toward the tournament and hoping to complete the table. But it is a little different now. I mean, you played slightly before the night 76 run. But talk a little bit about the difference back then, because Maryland is famous for not always getting into the tournament because of what it had to deal with in the ACC tournament.
Yeah, even though we deserved it. Back then, the ACC, believe it or not, was a one-bid conference, as were just about every conference. Either the winner of the regular season, like in the Pac-8, or the winner of the ACC tournament were the only ones to get to the NCAA tournament. And, my senior year, we were up against the number one team in the nation, NC State. We were number 4 in the nation. And, today, it would drive people crazy to believe that the number 4 team in the nation would not get to play in the NCAA tournament. But that's what happened. I mean, there's a hair sliver difference between us and NC State, but they got the advantage. They beat us in overtime in that particular game. They went on to win the national championship. The competitiveness was unbelievable back then. I mean, you were jockeying around in the regular season just to get that bye so you wouldn't have to play 3 consecutive games in the ACC tournament. You get one-day rest, and I think that's what happened to us. We kind of ran out of gas after destroying Duke and Carolina in the first 2 games. But today, you have an awful lot of second chances, if you will. Obviously the at-large field is bigger. Your tournament, the tournament conference championship doesn't mean nearly as much. And, finally, there are coaches now who will rest guys, will save guys in the conference tournament in order to be at full strength during the NCAA tournament. So, the competitive juices are a little bit different. The flow is a little bit different. The intensity certainly is different.
Len, as someone who played in really a golden era of college basketball at the end of Coach Wooden's run, at the beginning of Knight's and others, is there any way to look? I mean, they haven't done it yet, although the experts have pretty well already awarded them the championship. But to look at what Kentucky is doing right now, try to compare, try to juxtapose that with what Knight did, what some of the UCLA teams did, and so many others?
Well, I mean, I would say that take nothing away from Kentucky, because parity in college basketball is so much closer now than it was back in our day. I mean, you had your elite teams, your 20, 25 elite teams in college basketball, and those below that, it was very difficult for you to even think about an upset. Today, you got so much parity, so you give Kentucky an awful lot of credit for, weathering that field. They've taken on all comers. I give them a lot of credit, but it's not over yet. And when you talk about Bob Knight's accomplishment, they went undefeated throughout the season and through the NCAA tournament, won the championship, which is a huge, huge accomplishment. It's pretty ironic. Last year, Wichita State runs the table, and they ultimately, in the second round or third round, they meet Kentucky and then ultimately lose. And, people think that this season's disappointing, which, I beg to differ. And I'm thinking, again, the cruel sense of humor that the NCAA has, wouldn't it be interesting if Kentucky had to meet an 8th seed Wichita State coming up here in the tournament? I mean, that would be pretty interesting. But I give Kentucky a great deal of credit. They've played different styles of teams. They've found ways to win down the stretch. The one game that I thought they surely would lose, but a lack of fundamentals on the opponent's side got them to win, was the LSU game. If Jordan Mickey, if those guys had blocked out on a couple of key offensive rebounds down the stretch, I think Kentucky would be staring at a loss this year because LSU did everything else right. But, those are the breaks of the game.
Yeah, and listen, not to pile on Kentucky or praise them too much, but I am curious, someone who has such a great perspective of sports and what it means both on and off the court, on and off the field, what it means in real life. Just your view of what John Calipari is doing at Kentucky and how he is doing it.
Well, as a person, I really enjoy John Calipari. He's a terrific guy. I know he cares about his young men. I think, though, thumbing your nose at the concept of, further education. Not everybody's going to play in the NBA, and not all of his guys have been one-and-done players, which, people need to take a look at. But the idea of, not focusing on maybe keeping kids in school, this is a time when we should be building super highways to schools, not exit ramps. And also, as far as college basketball players are concerned, players are better when they stay with quality coaches like Calipari more than 1 year. People talk about getting out early so you can get that first contract and get to the second contract early. Well, guess what? If you don't have a fundamental base that is solid that you can build on, when you get to the NBA, sure, they draft you on what they think you're going to be able to do, but you never really fulfill that because you don't have the fundamentals to build your skill on. And there are so many guys who get to that first contract, ultimately wind up in the D-League and are out of the league before they never ever get to the second big contract. I mean, the greatest example, the poster boy for staying as long as you can to be as good as you can, is called Mr. Fundamentals, Tim Duncan, who stayed 4 years. He could have come out after his sophomore year. But look what he's been able to accomplish because he stayed in school. And, there's that all the cultural dynamic where, kids are among themselves saying, well, if you're in school after your sophomore year, you're not that good. Well, guess what? I'd rather lose a few positions in the first round because I stayed a little bit longer and get to that second contract where I can make a ton of money as opposed to come out first and, be a guy that's going to be 2 or 3 years and then gone.
In your own case, I mean, you obviously went to Maryland. You had a 10-year or longer pro career. Then you took a course that not that many college basketball players or former pro players take. You went to Harvard Law School, became an attorney, a prosecutor. Had you played in today's era, anything's possible, but how much more difficult would that have been?
It would have been extremely difficult because, I might have succumbed to, the allure, the dream of coming out early. With the numbers that I had coming out, I could have done that, but, I would take a look at my numbers, almost 15 points, 15 rebounds a game my senior year. That would have told a story right there. That's what enabled me, even though I got hurt pretty badly a couple of years in the NBA, but still had 10 years in professional basketball. I think staying long enough to develop certainly helped. And, my idea of life after basketball, I'd always wanted to be an attorney, and it's I kind of laugh sometimes and say basketball interrupted that dream. But, I've been very fortunate to do both, and, I've been blessed. And I think I'm no different than a lot of kids out there. I just wish they may have had the guidance and maybe possibly the incentive to do exactly what I've done. I'm no better or no worse than a lot of the other guys, but I hope that they recognize that there is life after sports, and even those who don't achieve the great deal of money that some of these guys have made have to recognize that they're still worthwhile and they still have something to offer when their basketball careers are over.
I have to ask you, you played in New York, you went to a pretty famous high school, you went to a famous college, you played everyone's dream of 10 years in the NBA, but at what point in your life did you decide you wanted to be an attorney, and what inspired that?
Pretty interesting, Paul. I was in junior high school, and, growing up during the tumultuous years of the war in Vietnam and the civil rights struggle, I had watched a lot of TV shows. I loved the lawyer shows, the Perry Masons, the Defenders, people like that. And, I wanted to be a voice for those who didn't have a voice. I wanted to be in the parade rather than stand and be a bystander. So, and I also had heroes like Paul Robeson, who was an All-American athlete, who was an entertainer, who was a lawyer, did all those things. And, I wanted to do and be all of that. And as I said, the year that I realized, my knees were hurting, I wasn't going to, be a frontline player anymore. It was my last year with the Knicks, and we were playing the Celtics in the playoffs in 1984. And, I had just gotten acceptance to Harvard Law. I could have deferred a year, but, during that period when we were in Boston, I took a trip over to Cambridge, looked on campus, went into the library, kind of weighed that with practice every day, and my knees hurt, and said, I'm going to be here next year.
They wouldn't be
a little easier on my knees.
Yeah, going to Harvard Law versus playing the NBA, much easier path. It's usually everyone's nightmare. Len, this has been a pleasure for me, and I know the audience as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime.
You bet. Great to talk to you. Wow, what a story. Len Elmore joining us, talking presumably about college basketball, but much more importantly about life.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Many of you have heard the Bobby V show, Bobby Valvano, and he is certainly a voice that is well known, and is also a commentator, of course, for ESPN Radio, and we look forward to visiting with him. He'll be calling Arkansas and Kentucky on Saturday. And Bobby V, thank you so much for being here. It's a great pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm right back at you. I'm happy to be with you.
Thanks. It's kind of hard not to talk about this game. I know you live in Kentucky, so you get a pretty good view of Kentucky fans, and you've been watching this program. I realize Kentucky has played a monstrous schedule before the SEC. The SEC schedule is somewhat under siege from critics around the country. But talk about this game and what it means.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of things that come to mind when I talk about Kentucky. And the first one, and I have to say it, is I really don't think Coach Cal's gotten nearly the credit he deserves for the job he's done with this team. When you're a fan and you've played 28 games and you've won all of them, it's easy to be happy. I mean, fans are happy. You win games, everybody's happy. But when you're coaching a team, that doesn't always translate to happiness, especially when you've got so many good players. And he's got a roster where he's got 8 guys playing 20 minutes a game and a ninth who's just under 20 minutes a game. That's 9 guys dividing up 180 minutes, with the other 20 going piecemeal to the rest of it. That's a lot of minutes to distribute, so equitably and keep people happy. And if you watch them, Paul, I mean, anybody who watches them has to be impressed with the two things that they do so well night in and night out, and that is they share the ball and they defend. And, he's playing to a system that really goes against his nature. Cal's been a guy all through his career who's played 7 guys. He's been a 7-guy rotation coach, and now he's got, 9 and beyond 9, really. I mean, but those are the primary 9 when you look at the stats, and they're all happy. They're all sharing the ball, and they're very difficult to play because, like a hockey team, they come out and they play tenacious defense for 3-4 minutes, and they go sit down, and another group comes in and does that. So I don't think you can, because he's got such good talent and they just keep winning, I think people think it's been easier than it really is for him. And the fact that, kind of what to your point, that the SEC, this is frequently the case in life, I think. The truth is somewhere in the middle. It is not one of the better power conferences in the country this year, but it's also not as bad as the bashers want to make it. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not, there's some teams in very much rebuilding mode down at the bottom of the standings, but I had the Arkansas game early in the year for TV at SMU, which is a horribly tough place to play, and, they're very good. And if you take Kentucky out of the equation, and the teams behind them in the standings, there's some decent teams there, if not very good teams. So I think that, you're shortchanging them a little bit to just dismiss it because the SEC is not a great league. But, as it pertains to this game that we'll be calling for ESPN Radio, I mean, I think the problem for Arkansas is they tend to be, by the nature of the way they play, I mean, all teams do this to a degree, but they certainly do, a team that plays in runs, because when they get their defense to generate their offense, they can put runs together. And the problem for Kentucky is they just make it really, really difficult to put any of those kinds of runs together, because even if you do get your defense going a little bit, they're so big and so long and so athletic that you don't get easy baskets off your defense, and it's very hard to put runs together. So the margin of error against them is so small, and I think that's what Arkansas faces, especially going into rough.
This question has come to me from our audience, and I'll pose it to you because you certainly understand the game a lot better than most of us. Many have said, hey, Arkansas has beaten Kentucky 3 straight times. I've tried to respond, well, that's true, but what does that have to do with Saturday afternoon? How would you respond to that?
No, unfortunately, it's going to be boring because I'd say the exact same thing. I mean, it's so what? I mean, there's guys on this squad this year that had nothing to do with last year's team, and all you got to do is look at Kentucky going from an NIT first-round loser to the juggernaut they were at the end. Heck, forget about the season before. How about just within the context of last season? You can only talk about what's going on currently, and I love the fact that to use that same analogy I just a minute ago about Arkansas having a small margin for error, that's why Kentucky's so dominant. Would they win? As I said before, how do you gauge them? I always do it with what I call the 10,000 test. If you played the NCAA tournament 10,000 times, who would win the most? And Kentucky, in my opinion, would overwhelmingly win more than any other team, and in fact, probably more than all of the other teams put together. They might win as many as 8,000, 8,500 of those tournaments, which is true dominance if you look at a single elimination, one and done kind of deal. And the reason for that is they have such a wide margin for error. If the Harrisons are not playing well, they've got the Ulis and Booker who can come in and be the dominant players on the court. They have a laundry list of big men who can at any given time take over the game. They got Willie Cauley-Stein, who literally guard any position on the floor. Whoever you've got going offensively, they can trot Willie Cauley-Stein on him and put the clamps on that guy. Foul trouble's not going to negate them. They've shown they can play fast. They've shown they can play slow. Their defense is effective right now at a record-setting pace. All of those things are the best ways to gauge, on any given night when a particular part of your game's not working well, where you might get bounced in a one and done. Can you find a way through? They've got all that. So yeah, I mean they've got the biggest margin of error in the country. It doesn't mean that they're going to win the national championship, but it's an easy way to explain why. I think, as I said, in that hypothetical 10,000 tournament scenario, they easily win most.
Continuing on the hypothetical here, Bobby, if you had to just load all the chips on one team the rest of the way that you would want to stake something on to beat Kentucky, where would you go?
Well, I did the Wisconsin game last week, and I really like Wisconsin. And we all know they were very close to beating Kentucky last year. But, again, not to be a hypocrite, because we just got through saying you kind of discount last year. So to some degree you do. But I like them because they have a wide margin, for error also, but not for the same reason Kentucky does. It's not because of the depth of their team. It's just because they can beat you a bunch of different ways. They have good size. Everybody knows the reputation of Wisconsin as a very good defensive team, but they are among the most offensively efficient teams in the country. They can create a goofy matchup problem for you with Kaminsky, who can run away from the basket and shoot threes like a two-guard, but he also can go around the basket and play inside. For a 7-footer, he's amazingly adept at putting the ball to the floor and getting to the basket. They've got a tremendous support cast that has really stepped up for them. They supposedly will get Trayvon Jackson back for the postseason, which helps them in terms of depth, because that is one thing that they don't really have a lot of is depth. But frankly, they really have played arguably better even since he's been out. So they have experience. They're coming off a Final Four. They have a variety of ways they can beat you. They can play at both ends. They can play big. They also can shoot it a little bit. So, I think that if I had to pick one team that would have a chance, the best chance, it would be them.
Bobby V. joining us, talking about Kentucky and the SEC. Finally, you mentioned the SEC. It's in a transition, trying to get better. It used to be a really good league. It fell off. I'm curious about one particular program that's certainly not on the bubble or anywhere close to it, but it used to be a really big program, and that's the University of Alabama. Anthony Grant, great credentials at VCU, certainly under Billy Donovan. His job seems to be on the line. What's your assessment of that situation?
Yeah, I am much like you. It's kind of like they're not so bad that you go, oh, it's just a complete failure. Time to blow it up and move forward. But they haven't had that breakthrough year. He was regarded, this, Paul. He was regarded, as one of the true bright young coaching minds in the country. He was in demand at a lot of places, and as you said, he goes to a place that's had a history of success, and they're kind of where are they? They're right in the middle of the standings, right? Yeah, as I'm looking at it right in front of me now, 7 and 8. And unfortunately, when you look at the SEC, to me, that's kind of where the drop-off starts. I think Arkansas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, good, solid teams. Alabama is not terrible, but from there down, there just doesn't look like there's a lot going on. So I don't know what the future is for them, but I do think you're right. If this league goes forward, that's one of the programs that has to get it back on the rails. I think Bruce Pearl is going to get it done, at Auburn. Just give him time. He'll be fine there. This is an aberration for Billy Donovan. We know they'll be back. I think Frank Martin is going to build things at South Carolina. LSU had, as you know, an just incredible recruiting class. Arkansas is in good shape. So I think the league is not as wobbly as people want to make it. I think you said it right. It's a league that, was good. It's just hit a down turn this year, but I think it's certainly primed to come back, and that's one of the programs that has to be good. I'll be curious to see what happens at Tennessee. I am going to be curious to see what goes on there. But, by and large, like I said, the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's not the ACC or the Big 12 in basketball this year, but it's certainly not nearly as bad as some people want to pass it off.
He'll be on the call Saturday, ESPN Radio, the Arkansas-Kentucky game. Many thanks, Bobby. Really good to catch up.
Looking forward to doing the selection show with you, my friend. So
yeah, that would be fun.
Well.
I'll just be sitting there listening because I don't think we need to wind you up. It takes too much. I can't wait for it.
Me too, buddy. Take care of yourself.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Dana O'Neil from ESPN joining us, talking about the Kentucky Wildcats. Dana, many thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. And it seems almost inescapable talking about college basketball without the Kentucky Wildcats. I know that's a subject that you have spent some time on recently. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, my pleasure, and you're absolutely right. You can't say college basketball right now without saying Kentucky, so they're sort of synonymous these days.
Let's talk a little bit about where this program is, what it means, and this incredible quest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a combination class, which I think is why it's working so well, of great freshmen coming in like Devin Booker and Tyler Ulis and Karl Anthony Towns, but also finally they got some guys coming back like the Harrison twins and Willie Cauley-Stein. I mean, I know sophomores aren't ancient, but at Kentucky they're pretty old, and I think that sort of is the recipe for success for most programs, and that's probably why it's working so well for Kentucky. You've got guys who have been through the wars who know how to do this with some really ridiculous freshman talent.
And it looks easy, Dana, but I know in your research on this subject, talk a little bit about what you found out and the challenges of playing for Kentucky. I mean, no team has ever been this deep, but everything seems to be going, at least right now, pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, it's funny. If you look from the outside, you think, how bad can this be, right? I mean, they live in a really nice dorm, and they travel well. And they have all the accoutrements, if you will, that a college athlete could possibly want. But the pressures are pretty extraordinary. I listened to the tail end of what your caller was saying, and it's exactly that. They want a championship. I mean, they don't settle for less than championships at the University of Kentucky and never have. And then you factor on top of that this team that is absolutely going for history. And I think most people in Kentucky would tell you that they would trade history so long as, the only game they lose is not the national championship game, as long as they come home with a title. That said, if they could do both, they would welcome that as well. I mean, it's definitely like being a rock star when you put that jersey on, in a good way and in a bad way, because I think those of us who watch from afar, people who are famous, know that there's a trade-off for all of the wonderful things that you get, and I think that's what those players experience.
Dana, you've written about this subject on ESPN.com under the heading "Playing for Kentucky Isn't Easy." You talk to pretty well-known people who have played for the University of Kentucky, and there's a long list that includes a lot of pretty well-known players, coaches, and stars. Is there any one takeaway that you could share with us, other than seeing the banners every day, other than the pressure, other than it being I realize Louisville has a good team, won a national championship a couple of years ago, but it's a state that bleeds blue. We all know that.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, someone likened it to, you know, Alabama football, and it is very much the same. Kentucky doesn't have pro sports, and so the University of Kentucky is the pro sport, for better or for worse. It's what people talk about 12 months of the year. There's no time off. It's from basketball season to recruiting season. They want to win at everything. What surprised me maybe when I talk to people, I didn't appreciate, I guess, once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat sort of a thing, that the players who played for Kentucky and achieved well, but also more importantly, you know, kept their nose clean, didn't get themselves in trouble or do anything to embarrass anyone, are as beloved today as they were 20 and 30 years ago. I talked to Kenny Walker, you know, who played in the 80s, and Cameron Mills and Scott Padgett, who played in the 90s, and they are treated the same today as they were then because, A, they won, and B, they carried themselves well. And so it really is amazing, just sort of, you know, you never disappear. As long as you don't want to disappear, they will take care of you for life. And that's pretty interesting. And it also comes with its own inherent pressures, too, because, you know, you're always still on, even after you've kind of gotten out of it. So it's an interesting dynamic.
And you mentioned since Cal got there, obviously the one national championship, you know, two title game appearances, 3 Final Fours, 4 regional finals. But I wonder if this team doesn't win. I'm not saying all that will go down the drain, but it almost seems like the pressure just keeps building. And I'm curious what you think about that. Not that anyone in Kentucky wants to acknowledge that this season could end any way other than a national title.
Well, that's of course a challenge. I mean, you know, even if this team wasn't loaded, people would expect them to win a national championship because that's just sort of what people expect you to do at the University of Kentucky. But because this team is so loaded, because, you know, Cal has set a bar that gets incrementally higher every year, there is only one place to finish, and that's, you know, first. And we all know that the NCAA tournament is a strange animal. The best team does not always win the national championship. Weird things happen. People make shots. Crazy things happen in this tournament, which is part of what makes it amazing, but it's no sure thing. And so, yeah, if this team doesn't win, it will be considered, I would think, an epic debacle. I mean, honestly, it really would, because this team is set up to win. But then the catch of it is, I've said to everyone, so what if they do win and they go 40-0? What in the world do you do next year? I mean, how do you surpass it? You go 40-0 and win by more points? I'm not sure how, you know, at some point it's diminishing returns. I can't imagine how they can keep one-upping themselves. So the expectations are huge because they've set an incredibly high bar.
Finally, about Cal, everyone, he's an easy target. But if he pulls this off, he will become a much more difficult subject to criticize. So just your view of Cal from being up close on the story and from afar.
Well, you know, I think, first of all, he is the perfect guy for this particular job because as difficult as it is to play for the University of Kentucky, I think it's 10 times harder to coach there because, you know, you've got to do the X's and O's because you have to win the game. But the X's and O's really aren't all of your job. You have to be on all the time. You have to demand and command attention and be innovative and accept the attention that comes your way. And he welcomes that and he absorbs a lot of it. You know, I think the one thing that has been unfair of John Calipari is he's often been criticized. He gets great players, therefore he must not be a very good coach. And I don't think that's true, nor have I ever thought that was true. I mean, he's a very good coach, just X's and O's wise. And if people think it's easy to manage personalities and egos and temperaments when you have the kinds that he has, it's not. You know, so if he wins his second national championship, obviously I would think people would give him his coaching due. I think people get caught up in the showman and the recruiter and forget at the end of the day he is a basketball coach and he must be doing something right. Yeah, he's got great players, but you still have to coach them and make them better. And he does that, and I don't think he gets the credit for that he probably deserves.
Dana O'Neil, a great story on ESPN.com. It's not easy playing for the Kentucky Wildcats, but if it's not, try playing for someone trying to beat them right now. Dana, great to visit with you, and excellent piece. Really appreciate your time.
Anytime. Glad to do it. Take care.
This is is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
David is next up in Tampa. Hey, David.
Oh, how you doing, man? I love your show.
Thank you so much.
You know, to elaborate what you're saying about getting it right with Mike Anderson. I grew up. I'm 46 years old, so I'm a basketball junkie. I love football, but basketball's where I'm at with it. And I followed Nolan Richardson from the days when he was a high school coach in El Paso, and I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I watched his boys play high school basketball in Tulsa, and I watched him at the University of Tulsa, and Mike Anderson be a point guard, and to see Mike grow up playing for Nolan, and then now, being an assistant coach for Nolan all these years, and now coming back to be the head coach. And then people don't take consideration that, he's beaten Kentucky through the last 4 years, against Calipari, but that's something to build up off because, Mike and most coaches in the country don't get the number 1, number 2, number 35, number 34 player in the country like the luxury of John Calipari does. And to me, that's Calipari's advantage. If he doesn't get those players, he's not winning. A previous caller said that this year, Calipari was, probably a couple of baskets from losing 3 games. Well, make it 4 because they skimped past Florida. And these are mediocre teams. So when they get in a tournament and start getting deep in a tournament where these better teams, I know Kentucky's playing better right now. I'm not anti-Kentucky, but, they are clicking. But there are some other teams that are, upper echelons like Duke, like I can go on and on. Villanova's playing pretty well. Kansas is getting better. Even though Kentucky beat Kansas earlier, Kansas is starting to play a little bit better. And there's just a lot of teams that are starting to click just as well. So I don't know if Kentucky has, to me, I don't think they have the experience to get past that. And the only thing that they really have outside of Calipari is Willie Cauley-Stein because of his he's now a junior. Since he's been here, everybody else is, one and done. So Calipari is a master at, in my opinion, getting the elite players out of high school, getting there for 1 year, and then he has to do it all over again and has to figure out how to do it all over again. But Willie Cauley-Stein has been his consistent. And that one constant in that program and that leadership has really kind of helped him because, to me, I can't say that they're that good. It's just college basketball isn't that great this year. It's just like overall college basketball is not how it was in the 80s or even early to mid-90s. There's not a lot of good teams. There's Kentucky, and then everybody else is just average at best. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like –
No, I do agree. This is not this is a strange time in the sport because that's why this Kentucky team is such a big story, the fact that you can recognize some of the names after last year.
Yeah, but even to me, I think what Mike is going to bring to Arkansas, and if he continues to do it, Kentucky might have a hard time in the future, because obviously Florida's won 2 championships, and, SEC basketball is not that good. It's Kentucky winning championships, and then everybody else is pretty mediocre. Florida has won a couple of championships, and, I live in Florida, so, I root for them in basketball. But, if you look at the top to bottom in SEC basketball, nobody's winning championships at a conference other than Florida and Kentucky. Arkansas, I don't know if they won it when they were just getting to the SEC or when they were, when Nolan was there. I don't know if it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did. I mean, Arkansas arrived in the SEC at a big. They came in 92, and obviously in 94, 95 went to the championship game, winning in 94.
Right. So nobody in that conference is really winning championships on a consistent basis. And to prove my point about SEC, and I get, for me personally, I just get tired of hearing about the SEC, even though I live in Florida and it's SEC country. But it's like every conference. I call them ring collectors. Just like in basketball. Somebody asked me, well, who's winning NBA championships in basketball? Well, there's ring collectors. There's the Lakers. There's the Celtics. There's the Bulls. There's Detroit. And you really can't name too many teams outside that's won multiple championships. Miami now. But you really can't. I mean, those are ring collectors. So the same thing with college football. It's like, who are the ring collectors? It's Alabama. It's Oklahoma. It's USC, Nebraska. Miami, Florida State. If you go to the Big Ten, there's only a couple of schools. You're looking at Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. But beyond that, nobody's really winning those championships. So if you flip it to college basketball, it's Kentucky. It was UCLA in the early years. Now it's off and on Kentucky.
Yeah, David, we need to run. But let me say one thing in defense of John Calipari. I know what you're saying about what he's doing at Kentucky, but don't forget, this guy had an elite program at Memphis. I mean, went to the national championship game, was within seconds of winning it. He had a couple of pretty famous players there who have been in the news lately as well with Chicago Bulls. I mean, he had an incredible run there. He went to the Final Four with UMass too, with Marcus Camby, and then he went to the NBA and flopped. But I mean, the guy has been a big time coach at 3 places. This isn't just because he's at the University of Kentucky, and it really wasn't an easy decision to go there. I remember him sweating it out because Memphis was in a great spot. They were in an inferior league, but that would have changed pretty quickly.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN Radio app.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.